you for joining me. This is Greeley Chronicles Today. I'm your host, Michael, and today I'll be covering Donald Trump's news conference. Today, President-elect Donald Trump held his first news conference since July. Today's conference began with Sean Spicer, communications director of the Republican National Committee, criticizing BuzzFeed and CNN for the publication of a dossier in a recent report. This dossier is a collection of memos written over a period of months and is said to include specific, unverified, and potentially unverifiable allegations of contact between Trump aides and Russian operatives, and graphic claims of sexual acts documented by the Russians. Spicer said, "It's frankly outrageous and highly irresponsible for a left-wing blog that was openly hostile to the president-elect campaign to drop highly salacious and flat-out false information on the internet just days before he takes the oath of office." He went on to say, "For all the talk lately about fake news, this political witch hunt by some in the media is based on some of the most flimsy reporting and is frankly shameful and disgraceful." Mr. Spicer eventually introduced Mike Pence. The future vice president made a few remarks, including that 19 of the 21 cabinet officials had been announced. 9 committee hearings were already scheduled, and 7 more were coming in the next few days. Mr. Pence also alluded to the BuzzFeed publication by saying the irresponsible decision of a few news organizations to run with a false and unsubstantiated report when most news organizations resisted and the temptation to propagate this fake news can only be attributed to media bias and attempt to demean the president-elect and our incoming administration. After Mr. Pence spoke, Donald Trump took the podium. He immediately made comments about news conferences being familiar territory to him and that his campaign probably won the election due to news conferences. He is quoted as saying, we stopped giving them because we were getting quite a bit of inaccurate news. But I do have to say that, and I must say that I want to thank a lot of the news organizations here today because they looked at that nonsense that was released by maybe the intelligence agencies, which Mr. Trump went on to say would be a tremendous blot on their record if they in fact did that. Mr. Trump made a short speech before taking questions. He ambiguously thanked other news organizations for speaking out against fake news. He spoke of some of the larger car companies bringing more manufacturing to the U.S. Then Mr. Trump criticized the drug industry, calling it disastrous. Mr. Trump took questions from the crowd afterwards. Many of the questions dealt with the Podesta email scandal and the Russian ties presented by the BuzzFeed report. In standing firm, a big moment in today's news conference was when Mr. Trump refused a question from a CNN reporter. The reporter repeatedly asked Mr. Trump to let him ask the question because of the earlier accusations in the conference. Mr. Trump refused adamantly, eventually telling the reporter, "You're fake news." If you'd like to see the full conference and read the full transcript, it can be found in the links in the description. Please follow Greeley Chronicles and tell me if you like the video. Greeley Chronicles Today is brought to you by High Plains Design Studio and Good Friends Landscaping and Excavation. Thank you for watching and goodbye.